Good evening, everyone. Bonjour, Anin. My name is Jaimie Isaac, and I'm Anishinaabe and of British heritage, a member of Sagkeeng First Nation, and I'm the curator here in residence at the WEG, and I'm here for Indigenous and Contemporary Arts. So it's a real honor to be here with all of you tonight and with my esteemed speakers. I'm here to talk to you about art. And I'm also going to welcome you again to Treaty 1 territory and homeland of the Métis. And I say that because that fact is not identifiable in the city landscape and has been deficient in our public education. So I ask, how is indigeneity reflected or represented in the city, in monuments or public arts? Where are the cultural signifiers that acknowledge and honor Indigenous history, contributions, leadership, and active presence? How does a city with a population of more than 78,000 Indigenous peoples living in the urban center, one of the largest urban populations of Indigenous people in Canada, not have public acknowledgement or public art presence that says we're on Treaty 1 territory and homeland of the Métis? It's certainly not for a lack of Indigenous artists or talent. There are only a few examples of Indigenous public art and monuments that are present in a city that enjoys an active art scene. And how does that translate to the public? Why is that important? Public art is, well, it's public. It's largely unavoidable and has the power to catch you off guard. I believe that recognition that Indigenous peoples were the founders of these lands must be formalized in a meaningful way. So how can Indigenous people take up space in a way that commemorates, honors, acknowledges, asserts, and celebrates Indigenous active presence and representation in the urban landscape? How can a city honor and present the languages, epistemologies, and oral histories of this place that we call Winnipeg and Manitoba? So Winnipeg and Manitoba, the names, I was curious about them, so I asked my Anishinaabe grandmother, Mary Kershane, who's an advocate of languages in curriculum. And I asked what the meaning of Winnipeg was. And in Anishinaabe, it means muddy waters. And it's actually pronounced Winnipeg. So I want all of us to say that to start. And Manitoba in Anishinaabe is where the creator sits, or Manitou. And it's here at the confluence of the Red and Assiniboine rivers that is the longitudinal center of North America. It's known now as the Forks. And this, which has been forever, 6,000 to 10 years, significant and meeting and trading place, an Indigenous city before encounter. So I just wanted to say that, to let that be known, and to think about the land that we occupy. And I'm just going to show you some examples of projects that affirmed presence and made gestures to gently nudge public engagement, inclusive to Indigenous and non-Indigenous publics, which I feel have worked as agents of change to confront realities and provoke acknowledgement from the dominant society's perspectives and awareness. This picture here is of the Ephemerals Collective, Jenny Western and Nikki Little and I. And we were invited to the University of Manitoba to think about ways that arts could help indigenize the academy. So we made a street sign to temporarily rename Alumni Road to an Anishinaabe word that sounds like this: Kagi Aya Watuma, which means those that were here before us, to also refer to the original inhabitants of the land as well as the alumni at the University of Manitoba. It was a bit cheeky. It stayed up for a month, and it was our intervention, our gesture to value one of the ancestral languages of this territory. But it also brought into a sobering truth that many people can't speak, understand, or read these languages. It's not a normalized language in public and social consciousness here. In 2013, artist Scott Benison had made an Anishinaabe solidarity flag, and I found a building that would host it for one day during Aboriginal Day. They said they didn't want to make a habit of it, but it was still very satisfying to see it fly. This is Casey Adams' photo series called Perception, which is to combat stereotypes some of the public have of Indigenous people, to illustrate that you can't judge a book by its cover. The first photo, the models are asked to think about racist remarks they or their family have experienced. In the second photo, they were asked to think about their own self-identifying, empowering titles that work to defy those stereotypes. And as you can see, it was in public spaces and bus shelters and billboards and posters throughout the city. Winnipeg Art Gallery's We're on Treaty Land exhibition honors and acknowledges the treaties, and that the Winnipeg Art Gallery and Winnipeg is on Treaty 1 territory and homeland of Métis. It was my first curated show at the WAG, and it's not my last. I'm really honored to be here at the WAG, to have this platform to be able to talk about some of these issues that are important to me and important to many people, and where I get to exercise and practice Indigenous, decolonial, and curatorial methods. There is work ahead and an exciting shift in politics and Indigenous leadership. The role of Indigenous visual arts is unequivocally related to politics for and in the name of land and the powerful connection to culture. Being an Indigenous person is inherently political, and Indigenous art is inherently politically, culturally, socially charged. So yesterday, the Canadian government officially adopted the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And of particular relevancy to art in this context is Article 11, to protect, revitalize, manifest, and maintain Indigenous cultures through interdisciplinary arts. So it's exciting to imagine what a more indigenized city looks like in enacting those actions. And here's a concept by local artist Kenneth Lavallee, who originally conceived this in solidarity of both the missing and murdered Indigenous women and reconciliation movements. And seeing it as a flexible, community-based mural project, the intent was to have a star blanket mural draped over buildings in downtown Main Street, dedicated to every woman we have lost, creating a powerful and unavoidable visual street presence. So as we start to think about, in the next year, Canada 150, and we approach that, what story will and can we tell? It's time that public art in Winnipeg represents, advances, promotes Indigenous knowledge, art, culture, languages, and aesthetics. It's time to claim space and use art to bring forth our stories. These complex intercultural and braided histories, it's time to trace those connections to place and belonging in our urban landscape. Akina Dinaway Maganak, all my relations, Chimigwich.